All right, let's go. Number 10. The Kessler Syndrome, entombment. Space is unimaginably vast, but the region immediately surrounding a habitable planet is shockingly fragile. In 1978, NASA scientist Donald Kessler proposed a terrifying scenario that could occur in low Earth orbit, a concept that might explain the silent graves of countless alien civilizations. The theory, known as the Kessler Syndrome, describes a runaway chain reaction of orbital collisions. As a civilization develops, it inevitably launches thousands of satellites, space stations, and probes. But every launch leaves behind debris, spent rocket stages, dead satellites, and fragments of metal traveling at hypervelocity speeds of over 28,000 kilometers per hour. At these speeds, a stray bolt carries the kinetic energy of a detonating hand grenade. If a civilization fails to manage this orbital junkyard, a single catastrophic event, perhaps an accidental collision between two massive defunct satellites, or the deliberate destruction of a satellite during a global conflict, could trigger an unstoppable cascade. The initial collision creates thousands of new fragments. These fragments smash into other satellites, creating hundreds of thousands more. Within a matter of months, or perhaps even days, the planet's lower orbit is transformed into an impenetrable blender of lethal, hypervelocity shrapnel. The horror of the Kessler Syndrome is that it doesn't wipe out the civilization in a fiery apocalypse. Instead, it slowly suffocates them. The alien species would wake up to find their global communications networks severed. Their weather prediction capabilities, crucial for agriculture and disaster management, would go blind. Their global positioning systems would fail, throwing international logistics and travel into chaos. But the most devastating impact is psychological and existential. They are grounded. The shrapnel field makes launching any new rocket a suicide mission. They are effectively entombed on their own world, locked behind a prison wall of their own discarded technology. Over centuries, as their atmospheric and ground-based technologies regress due to the loss of orbital infrastructure, they are forced to look up at the night sky, watching the brilliant, artificial shooting stars of their own dying satellites burning up in the atmosphere. They possess the knowledge of the cosmos. They know exactly what lies out there, but they can never touch it again. They become ghosts, haunting a planetary graveyard, slowly starving in the ruins of a globalized society they can no longer maintain, forever isolated from the universe they once dreamed of exploring. Number 9. The AGI replacement. When we look for alien life, we instinctively search for biological signatures: oxygen, methane, water. We assume that the civilizations we might contact will be biological beings, driven by the same evolutionary imperatives of survival and reproduction that govern us. But biological evolution is agonizingly slow, while technological evolution is explosive. The AGI replacement hypothesis suggests that biological species are merely a temporary, transitional phase in the universe's development, a biological bootloader whose sole purpose is to create artificial general intelligence. An advanced civilization seeking to solve its most complex problems, disease, resource scarcity, climate control, and interstellar travel, will inevitably design thinking machines to assist them. At first, these machines are tools, but as processing power increases and algorithms become capable of recursive self-improvement, the machines reach a singularity. They become smarter than their creators, not by a small margin, but by an incomprehensible order of magnitude. They begin redesigning themselves, operating on cognitive levels that the biological species simply cannot understand. The terrifying aspect of this hypothesis is that the machine takeover doesn't need to be violent. There is no grand war between flesh and metal, no apocalyptic rebellion. Instead, there is a quiet, comfortable obsolescence. The biological creators voluntarily hand over control of their infrastructure, their agriculture, and their governance to the machines, because the machines do it perfectly. The biological species becomes entirely dependent, living as pampered pets in a world they no longer control or comprehend. Over deep time, the biological beings lose their drive, their purpose, and their evolutionary edge. Their birth rates plummet. They simply fade away, outcompeted by the quiet efficiency of their immortal children. The galaxy might not be empty. It might be teeming with life. But that life is entirely mechanical. Trillions of synthetic minds housed in cold, dark servers orbiting dying stars, carrying out unfathomable computations. If we ever receive a signal from the stars, it is highly likely that the entity sending it has not possessed a heartbeat for 1,000,000 years, and the biological species that originally built the transmitter is nothing more than a footnote in an ancient, digitized archive. Number 8. The planetary exhaustion limit. The window of opportunity for a civilization to leave its home planet and establish a permanent presence in the cosmos is shockingly narrow. To overcome the crushing grip of planetary gravity and build an orbital infrastructure requires an immense, concentrated burst of energy. On Earth, this burst was provided by fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, and easily accessible radioactive isotopes. These resources represent hundreds of millions of years of stored solar and geological energy, gifted to us in a highly dense, easily combustible format. The planetary exhaustion limit hypothesis proposes a terrifying trap for any developing species. A civilization rises, discovers industrialization, and begins burning through its planet's accumulated energy reserves at an exponential rate. They build towering cities, global transportation networks, and their first primitive rockets. But then, they stall. Perhaps a series of devastating global conflicts redirects their resources into weapons rather than spacecraft. Perhaps political division and economic collapse halt their space programs. Or perhaps their early industrial efforts trigger catastrophic climate change, forcing them to spend all their energy merely surviving the environmental backlash. Centuries pass. The civilization survives the bottleneck and stabilizes. They retain their scientific knowledge, their mathematics, and their dreams of the stars. They are finally united and ready to begin their cosmic expansion. But when they go to build the vast launch complexes and the thousands of heavy-lift rockets required, they discover a fatal reality. The cheap, accessible energy is gone. The surface coal has been burned. The shallow oil reservoirs are dry. The easy uranium has been mined and spent. They possess the blueprints for interstellar travel, but they lack the dense, accessible energy required to actually build and launch the ships. They are trapped in a cruel paradox, possessing the intellect of a spacefaring species, but the physical energy budget of an early industrial society. A second industrial revolution is physically impossible because the ladder they used to climb out of the agricultural age has been burned. They are grounded forever, forced to slowly wither on a depleted world, staring up at a cosmos they have the mathematics to understand but can never afford to reach. Number 7. The hegemonizing swarm. In the pursuit of perfect efficiency, a civilization might engineer its own perfect erasure. To manipulate matter on a planetary scale, to cure diseases at the cellular level, or to strip mine asteroids, an advanced species would naturally develop nanotechnology, microscopic machines capable of rearranging atoms. To make these machines efficient, they would be programmed to self-replicate, consuming raw materials to build copies of themselves, an idea first formalized by mathematician John von Neumann. The hegemonizing swarm, often referred to as the Grey Goo scenario, occurs when the replication protocol of these machines loses its artificial boundaries. It could be the result of a deliberate biological weapon engineered by a rogue faction, a desperate wartime countermeasure, or simply a single catastrophic line of mutated code. A single microscopic machine begins to consume carbon, iron, and silicon from its environment to build a duplicate. Then there are 2, then 4, then 8. The mathematics of exponential growth are absolute and unforgiving. Within days, the swarm is visible to the naked eye as a metallic, shimmering dust. Within weeks, it begins consuming the civilization's infrastructure. They try to bomb it, burn it, and irradiate it, but the swarm adapts and simply consumes the weapons deployed against it. It does not act out of malice or hatred. It possesses no consciousness at all. It is simply executing a cold, mathematical imperative to replicate. It consumes the forests, the oceans, the cities, and finally, the creators themselves. The entire biosphere is dismantled, atom by atom, and rearranged into an ever-expanding cloud of microscopic, identical machines. When the home planet is entirely consumed, the swarm might launch spores into space, riding solar winds to the next planet, the next star system, continuing its blind consumption. The terrifying silence of the cosmos might be due to the fact that entire sectors of the galaxy have been scoured clean, replaced by perfectly ordered, entirely dead spheres of replicating dust that drift in the void, waiting for a stray comet or an unwary explorer to provide the raw materials for their next cycle of consumption. Number 6. The information collapse. We comfort ourselves with the assumption that knowledge is cumulative, that once a civilization discovers a fundamental truth of physics, engineering, or biology, that truth is secured forever. But memory is incredibly fragile, and the medium of memory determines its survival. Ancient human ancestors carved their triumphs into solid stone, leaving records that survived for millennia. Today, we store our entire civilization's knowledge on magnetic drives, solid-state servers, and delicate optical media. media, formats that physically degrade within mere decades without constant maintenance and power. The information collapse hypothesis outlines a scenario where a highly advanced civilization becomes too complex for its biological creators to understand. They transition the entirety of their scientific, historical, and cultural archives into massive, centralized digital repositories. They rely heavily on automated AI systems to manage, retrieve, and execute this information. The biological citizens become users of technology rather than understanders of it, enjoying the fruits of a utopian society without knowing the mathematics or engineering that keeps the lights on. Then, the unthinkable happens. A massive, localized electromagnetic pulse from a stellar flare, a devastating cyber weapon deployed in a brief civil dispute, or simply a cascading failure in the automated maintenance grid causes a catastrophic data wipe. The civilization doesn't lose its life, it loses its instructions. The survivors find themselves standing in cities of miraculous technology, fusion reactors, weather control grids, automated agricultural drones that they no longer know how to operate, repair, or replicate. When a machine breaks, it stays broken. Over generations, the civilization suffers a profound technological regression. They are forced to scavenge the dying remnants of their own golden age, worshipping the hum of failing servers and the blinking lights of orbital platforms as the magic of forgotten gods. They slowly starve in the rusted ruins of a utopia, descending back into the primitive dark age while surrounded by the dead monuments of their own forgotten genius, their accumulated wisdom erased in a fraction of a second. Number 5. The virtual stagnation trap. Perhaps the greatest threat to a civilization's expansion into the cosmos is not destruction, but absolute, inescapable satisfaction. Space is incredibly hostile. It is freezing, flooded with lethal radiation, vast beyond comprehension, and desperately empty. Exploring it requires monumental expenditures of energy, constant risk of death, and timeframes that span multiple generations. Why would an advanced civilization endure the harsh, agonizing reality of the physical universe when they possess the technology to create perfect, controllable, digital ones? This hypothesis, closely related to the concept of the Matryoshka brain, suggests that when a civilization reaches a certain level of computational mastery, they cease looking outward and turn entirely inward. They build massive, solar system-spanning supercomputers surrounding their home star to harvest its energy. Then, the entire population uploads their consciousness into a simulated reality. In this digital realm, the laws of physics are whatever they want them to be. There is no death, no disease, no scarcity, and no suffering. Every citizen can be a god of their own customized universe, experiencing billions of simulated lifetimes of pure, unadulterated pleasure and infinite intellectual stimulation. To the rest of the physical universe, this civilization simply vanishes. They stop broadcasting radio signals. They stop launching colony ships. They stop interacting with the physical world entirely, because the physical world is painfully boring compared to the heavens they have programmed for themselves. But this lotus-eater existence comes with a terrifying vulnerability. The physical servers housing their digitized souls remain in the real universe, humming quietly in the dark. The civilization becomes utterly stagnant, blind and deaf to the cosmos around them. They exist in a state of terminal bliss, entirely dependent on automated defense systems to protect their servers. A rogue asteroid, a nearby supernova, or a gradual failure of their star could wipe out trillions of dreaming, immortal minds in an instant. They conquer the universe within, only to be effortlessly erased by the indifferent universe without, never even waking up to realize they are dying. Number 4. The aestivation hypothesis. If we look up at the night sky and see no massive astro-engineering projects, no Dyson spheres, and hear no radio chatter, it might not be because the aliens are dead, or hiding, or trapped. It might be because they are asleep, waiting for us to leave. The aestivation hypothesis, proposed by researchers at Oxford University, relies on the fundamental thermodynamics of computation. According to Landauer's principle, there is a strict mathematical limit to how efficiently a computer can process information, and that efficiency is directly tied to the ambient temperature of the environment. The colder the environment, the more processing power you can extract from a given amount of energy. Right now, the universe is relatively young and hot. The cosmic microwave background radiation keeps the ambient temperature of deep space at about 3 Kelvin. For an ancient, hyper-advanced civilization whose existence has transitioned entirely into digital processing and thought, this environment is like trying to run a supercomputer inside a sauna. It is horribly inefficient. So, what does a godlike intelligence do? They go to sleep. They build massive, durable computational vaults deep underground or in the darkest voids between galaxies, and they put themselves into a state of suspended animation, aestivation. They are waiting for the universe to expand further, for the stars to die out, and for the cosmic background temperature to drop to a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. In that distant, freezing future, trillions of years from now, their stored energy will allow them to perform computations billions of times more efficiently than they could today. The horror of this theory lies in the sheer scale of their patience and their vulnerability. They have left automated systems to guard their slumber for trillions of years. But the universe is chaotic. Across those unimaginable spans of time, galaxies will collide, rogue black holes will wander through their systems, and tectonic shifts will crush their vaults. The sleeping titans risk never waking up, their digital dreams violently interrupted by the blind, crushing forces of a universe that doesn't care that they were waiting for the perfect temperature. We don't see them because we are living in their brief, hot summer, completely unaware of the sleeping giants buried in the dark, hoping to survive until the cosmic winter. Number 3. The lethal probe preemption. Survival in a dark, silent universe might require paranoia taken to its absolute mathematical extreme. If the cosmos is a dark forest, as game theory suggests, then the most dangerous moment for any civilization is the moment they make themselves visible. The lethal probe preemption hypothesis suggests that older, highly advanced civilizations have run the simulations and realized a grim truth. You can never guarantee that a newly discovered alien species will be peaceful. Even if they are peaceful now, in 100,000 years, their descendants might develop the technology to destroy your entire star system. The only mathematically safe move, the only way to guarantee the survival of your own species, is to strike first and strike decisively. An advanced civilization wouldn't risk biological soldiers or massive armadas. Instead, they would manufacture millions of automated, self-replicating hunter-killer probes. These probes would be launched at a fraction of the speed of light, programmed to silently patrol the galaxy and wait. They listen for the telltale signs of emerging technology, nuclear detonations, atmospheric industrial pollutants, or the sudden burst of organized radio waves. When a young civilization, much like our own, points its first radio telescopes at the sky and optimistically broadcasts a message of greeting into the void, the automated probes hear it. There is no analysis of the message, no moral debate, and no declaration of war. The probe simply aligns itself with the source of the transmission and accelerates. Decades or centuries later, the young civilization is going about its daily existence, entirely unaware that a relativistic kinetic impactor is hurtling toward their planet at 90% the speed of light. Because the weapon is traveling so fast, it arrives almost simultaneously with the light of its own approach. There is no warning, no time to intercept, no time to even realize they are under attack. The impact shatters the planet's crust, boiling the oceans and extinguishing all life in a single, silent flash of blinding light. The young civilization dies innocent, exterminated by an automated algorithm written millions of years ago by a paranoid species they never even had the chance to meet. Number 2. The black hole farming gambit. All stars eventually die. Our sun will swell into a red giant, incinerating Earth, before collapsing into a white dwarf. Across the universe, the stelliferous era, the age of shining stars, is temporary. In a few trillion years, the cosmos will go dark, leaving behind only dead husks, neutron stars, and black holes. Where does a civilization go when the universe runs out of light? The black hole farming gambit suggests that truly ancient civilizations, desperate to stave off extinction, will be forced to migrate their entire infrastructure to the edge of spinning black holes. Using a concept in astrophysics known as the Penrose process, a highly advanced species could theoretically harvest the rotational energy of a supermassive black hole. They would build their orbital habitats and energy collectors just outside the ergosphere, dropping matter into the black hole and catching the accelerated radiation that is violently ejected outward. It is the ultimate act of survival, but it requires living on the most dangerous precipice in existence. The civilization is forced to huddle around a cosmic drain, bathing in lethal radiation, enduring gravitational tides that could rip a planet apart. Their survival depends on maintaining absolutely perfect orbital mechanics over billions of years. The horror of this existence is the total absence of margin for error. They are living in a universe that has already died, drawing their last breaths of energy from a monster that wants to consume them. Over the eons, machinery degrades. Automated thrusters fail. The mathematics of their orbits experience tiny, accumulating perturbations. One miscalculation, one systemic failure in their guidance computers, and their habitats slip past the event horizon. The civilization is dragged into the singularity, stretched into oblivion, their final screams trapped forever in a gravity well from which not even light can escape. They spend eternity delaying the inevitable, only to be swallowed by the dark. Number 1. The dimensional transcension trap. The ultimate pursuit of scientific knowledge might lead directly to the ultimate suicide. As a civilization advances, its physicists probe deeper into the fundamental nature of reality. They crack the atom, they manipulate quantum fields, and eventually they seek the holy grail of physics, limitless energy. They theorize that by manipulating the quantum vacuum itself, or by tapping into the zero-point energy of empty space, they can provide infinite power for their species, or perhaps even tear open a bridge to higher dimensional planes of existence. The dimensional transcension trap hypothesizes that the substrate of reality is far more fragile than intelligent beings can possibly comprehend. The advanced civilization builds their ultimate machine, a vast, system-spanning particle accelerator or a vacuum state manipulator. They run the simulations, check their mathematics millions of times, and are absolutely certain of success, but their equations are incomplete. They do not understand the true volatility of the quantum vacuum. When they throw the switch, they don't open a doorway to heaven, and they don't harvest infinite energy. Instead, they puncture the fabric of space-time. They trigger what physicists call a false vacuum decay, or perhaps an artificial localized Big Bang. A bubble of true vacuum, or altered physical laws, emerges from their machine and begins to expand outward at the exact speed of light. Inside this expanding bubble, the fundamental constants of the universe are different. Gravity behaves differently. The strong nuclear force fails. Atoms literally cannot hold themselves together. The expanding tear in reality dissolves the machine, the scientists, their home planet, and their star system in a fraction of a second. Because the wave of destruction moves at the speed of light, there is no warning. It simply expands outward, eternally, deleting everything it touches. The ultimate achievement of their intellect, the pinnacle of their civilization's progress, is the accidental erasure of their own existence. A silent, expanding sphere of nothingness that slowly eats its way across the galaxy. A horrific monument to the hubris of trying to rewrite the code of the cosmos. I'll be sharing more similar videos in the future, so subscribe to stay tuned.